Hello again, and welcome to Section 5, entitled Common College Writing Assignments. This is a section that I think many of you will find very useful. It's one I'm also especially excited about. It's where I'm going to walk you through some key strategies and ideas of how to write some of the most common college writing assignments effectively. So today we'll begin with the opinion editorial, or the op-ed. First, as always, let's go ahead and talk about the purpose. The purpose of an op-ed or an opinion editorial is to persuade your audience to agree with your claims and then to act on a specific issue. So today I'm going to walk you through first some pre-writing ideas and then each part of the actual paper and give some strategies, talk a little bit about each part of the opinion editorial, the op-ed paper, so the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. But first, the first thing we need to do is to choose a topic. We do this obviously in our pre-writing stage of the writing process. So when we're pre-writing, we need to think first of what topics are relevant in your current life. It's very important to remain current. And I'll talk about this, or I'll remind you of this again at the end, but it's also a useful idea to choose current topics that can also be read as controversial. So controversial topics make very good op-ed pieces because your readers will have an immediate response. Once you've identified topics that you think are relevant in your personal current life, start to connect your personal interests and do some just basic background research to make sure you're both informed and passionate about the topic. So being informed is not enough, and being only passionate is not enough. We need to make sure we're both informed and passionate about the topic we're writing on. The second thing we need to do in our pre-writing is to identify the audience. So who is your specific audience? What are the general opinions, beliefs, and values of your audience? How might your audience take a stance on the issue, and how come? And what new information or ideas are you going to offer to those members who already agree with you? So in other words, in order to carve out your own angle and to be able to present your opinion in a persuasive way, you need to identify your audience early on, at least the audience, your target audience, in order to decide which types of examples, which type of rhetoric, which level of diction, and so on to use in order to be most persuasive. Once we've done our pre-writing, we've answered these questions for ourselves, and we've written down a few ideas, or we've drawn a mind map to start to draw those connections that we'll discuss in detail in our paper. We then need to come up with our thesis. As we develop our thesis, it's important to first remember that a really good opinion editorial is not simply an emotional rant. You see these all over the internet these days, of simple emotional rants about controversial topics. That is not an effective opinion editorial. An effective opinion editorial strikes a balance between emotion, logic, and the effective appealing to authority. So as you're selecting a topic to write on, make sure that it is a topic that you'll be able to apply a balance to, that you're not only overly emotional about, or that you're not simply thinking logically about, but something that you can tap into each of these three elements of rhetoric. Remember also that just like any other piece of writing, it's important to select a narrow topic and a topic where you're going to be able to assert a certain claim. As you develop your thesis, also remember that you want to write a thesis that people will disagree with. Right? Of course, you want to persuade people to agree with you, but your thesis should invite counter-arguments. It should invite disagreement. Remember, this is your opinion, not a fact. So you want people to both agree and disagree. So as you think about this, you should think of the possible objections to your thesis. If you can think of a number of good counter-arguments, that means you're on the right track. That means you have a good thesis. So questions to ask yourself as well as you're developing your thesis are things like, does the issue have at least two sides? And is my stance on the issue clear? Once you've constructed your thesis, and again, as always, I'm happy to take a look at your thesis for you before you even begin to write your paper. But once you finish your thesis and you've done your introduction, we move on to the body. For the body of an opinion editorial, remember opinion editorials are typically quite short, quite brief, and to the point. You should identify 3 or 4 main reasons why your audience should agree with your thesis. You should state each of these reasons as the topic sentence of each of your body paragraphs. So each body paragraph should discuss only one of those 3 or 4 reasons. And remember that each body paragraph needs to give evidence that supports your original thesis. And within opinion editorials, it's also important to remember that you can and even should use both formal and informal research. So life anecdotes, peer surveys, as well as research into more reputable sources. So once we've created our body through 3 or 4 main paragraphs, each discussing only one main reason that our audience should agree with our thesis, so we move on to our conclusion. When we conclude an opinion editorial, it's very important that we conclude, again, of course you don't always have to do it this way, but it's quite effective to conclude again with your own commentary on the topic. And you do this by doing things like providing a personal anecdote to illustrate your personal investment in the topic. So concluding on a personal anecdote that connects with the audience and shows your own investment, and about speaking frankly about the larger politics, interpretations, concerns, and so on that have to do with the more narrow topic there at hand. And if you're looking for examples of good opinion editorials, the perfect place to look is simply at your favorite newspaper, or your favorite newspaper columnist. Take a look at how he or she introduces the topic, what topics they're choosing, how they develop their body paragraphs, and of course how they conclude. And to conclude today, let's give you some final tips. Remember, your topic should be current and controversial. Those make for the best op-ed writing topics. Remember to be concise. Again, these are short, so to the point, state your claim very early on and clearly, which is, of course, my next point. State where you stand clearly and early in your paper. Encourage the action that your opinion should invoke. This is also a great thing to do in your conclusion, is to encourage some sort of action, invite your audience to take action. And that's it. So in my opinion, opinion editorials are some of the most fun writing you'll be able to do in college. But we also don't receive a lot of training on how to write an effective opinion editorial. So I hope today helps in that regard. If you do have any questions, of course, let me know. And I look forward to our next lecture on literary or textual analysis.